Hey guys, Peter here to do an album review. Today I'm here to tell you about the latest from Carnifex, Graveside Confessions, out September 3rd on Nuclear Blast. This album has 15 tracks, 1 hour 3 minutes in length, and this is the band's 8th full-length studio record. They are an American deathcore band. Now this album obviously offers a lot of new material, but there's also some caveats here. You're going to get a Korn cover and 3 re-recorded songs from their debut record, Dead in My Arms, which is celebrating 14 years anniversary. Now, how they put it all together? Well, they constructed an album that has 2 equal halves, as far as strength, as far as aggression, as far as power is concerned. What you get in that first half of the record is exactly what you're going to get in the second half. And while the record has 15 songs and it's over the 1 hour mark, it really feels a lot tighter than that. It feels more cohesive because it's super balanced. The elements that you get in one song, you start to see them moving towards the next track and the next track. So this offers a sense of continuity to the overall listening experience, making the album feel as one, even though it's really stretched out. The only exception to this rule is January Nights, a song that comes in the middle of the record that really defines that break between the 2 halves of the album, and it offers something different. This is an interlude instrumental track with symphonic elements that goes over the 3-minute mark, and you really need a song of this nature on a record that has this much sound, that is this heavy, that is this brutal. You need a track that allows the listener to catch a breath, to take a break, a little bit of a reprieve, reset yourself, and prepare for the onslaught that's going to come in that second half of the record, matching the intensity of the first half. The question really is this song enough to break the routines of the album and to offer the record a little bit more playability? Now, once you get into the soundscape, 2 things immediately became noticeable to me. One was how explosive the sound was on this record. I don't think I had that same experience with previous Carnifex albums. With this album, the sound felt so direct, so explosive that as you're listening to the songs, it feels like it's getting bigger as it's entering into your ears. Just really interesting approach, and that is really consistent throughout the whole album. The other side of things was that I didn't feel like this record really suffered from the band going from a 5-piece into a 4-piece. I was expecting perhaps the soundscape to be affected by it because you're going to have less tools to work with. But if anything, the album became a little bit more direct, a little bit more punchy, a little bit more in your face, adding to the overall aggression, adding to the overall intensity. But as far as losing a step or becoming something that it was not there before as far as the band is concerned, I felt like it's business as usual and they just moved forward. Like I said, perhaps becoming a little bit more direct in its approach. The symphonic elements are still going to be present, they're still throughout the record, but on this album I felt they had a less impact on the atmosphere, perhaps more of an impact on the soundscape itself. It added layers, it added thickness, it added experience of sound, but it didn't really have that impact in the atmosphere that we saw on previous albums. There's a song or 2 that might prove me wrong, but overall what I got from the symphonic elements of this record was just really to make the overall experience of the sound richer, better, more dynamic, and not necessarily control the atmosphere that the tracks have. Then you have the guitars. The guitars was really something that I was focusing on because I wanted to see how they were going to go from having 2 guitar players to having 1 guitar player. I didn't feel like there was a lot of difference in terms of the experience that the tracks were giving me. Like I said, perhaps more punchy, perhaps more direct, but the quality of the solos, how they added a volume here and there, and how they added to the overall atmosphere of the songs was really important. Perhaps where the symphonic elements are dropping a little bit of having more of a predominant role, I really felt the guitars were picking up that slack and moving into the forefront and adding sound, adding heaviness, driving the songs, but also adding sparks of atmosphere to the songs, which is really important in order to make them feel a little bit more complete. And then you have the consistency from the drums. The drums on this record are super consistent as far as the heaviness is concerned, and as far as the foundation that they're creating, something that's been true from Carnifex for years now, so it's nothing that you're going to see here that you haven't seen before, but I really felt that they were stable, compact, in the pocket from the beginning all the way to the end. Consistency in approach, consistency in execution, and consistency in terms of what they're giving to the songs as far as volume and heaviness and grounding the tracks is concerned. Then on top of all of this, you have Scott Ian Lewis on vocals, and he's delivering what you've come to expect from him. It's not like he's going to give you something on this record that you haven't heard before on a Carnifex album. So he comes in and he becomes that conduit between what the lyrics have, what the atmosphere of the songs is all about, and then the soundscape. He's the guy that comes in and merges these three different worlds, brings them together, and it works his vocal range in order to really create the perfect avenue, the perfect path between all three. Because the paths are not always parallel, they're not always linear, they don't always take you towards the same destination. So he's the one that's really the puppet master, if you will, and really organizing where these three things are going, or how they're going to interact with one another, using his voice as the glue that brings it all together. Overall, this is a very strong album from Carnifex. An album that feels like a celebration of the band, a celebration of their roots, of where they are and where they're going. I just felt like it was a little bit too much on one single album. If you look at the previous record, World War X, it had 9 songs, was 35 minutes. I feel like that's more in their pocket, specifically if you're going to have an album that's this aggressive, that's this brutal, this relentless. 15 songs over the 1 hour mark becomes a little bit too much, becomes a little bit overbearing. January Nights is not enough of a song to really break that feel, to really break that sense of just drilling me down, of just absolutely destroying me as the listener, and not really allowing me to have breaks in between here and there in order for me to reach the end of the album with still the same energy that I had when I started. This record, if you're gonna go with 15 songs and over the 1 hour mark, it needs 2 tracks like January Nights. So the album needs to be divided into 3 pieces, not 2 pieces. Now, as far as favorite songs are concerned, I want to start off with Cursed, a song that blends heaviness and the symphonic elements as one in the sound that it creates. A track that has a relentless approach as far as the sound goes and the vocals together, really putting you through a blender. The only difference is in which speed is it blending you. That's pretty much all that it changes from beginning all the way to the end. You feel like you're being destroyed, but you're just changing the speeds in which you're being destroyed with. So absolutely incredible track, a lot of power. The drums are phenomenal on this song, really providing that roadmap, really providing that foundation, but also providing the heaviness of the song, the backbone of this track all around. The vocals add a lot of ebbs and flows to this track because it's a very relentless sounding track, and it needed something to change those dynamics. There are some speed changes, there's some tempo changes throughout the song, but I felt that there were more, the song kind of jumped a little bit more into the forefront as far as defining its path and defining its ebbs and flows through the vocals more so than through the sound, because you're so concentrating on how heavy the track is that you almost lose track, that sometimes it loses a little bit of its momentum. But great song all around. Next you have Talk to the Dead, pounding heaviness. The drums are super consistent from the beginning all the way to the end. The guitars are more weaving within this track. You feel like the drums are moving in a straight line, never really deviating from their path, and then you have the guitars kind of weaving in and out and kind of creating the web that this song really becomes. It has a really heavy breakdown that adds even more heaviness to how the song feels. It adds even more heaviness to how this song is processed. The guitar kind of jumps into the forefront of this track because of that weaving motion, creating that web that this track has. So the guitars become the driver of your experience, they become the driver of the song itself, and everything else is kind of there to kind of just hold it all together. Last but not least, Cold Dead Summer, one of my favorite songs on this album. Starts off very methodic and then kind of sets you up for the aggression that comes after. And that kind of design of being methodic and then pumping you with aggression is going to be pretty much the trademark of this song throughout. So it's a song that feels like comes in bursts. It feels like has stop and go, stop and go, stop and go. Because of that, it feels even heavier. It makes the sensation of the track be more impactful because it kind of dulls you up and then it hits you with a lot of power. Not to say that during the methodic portions of the track there's no heaviness or no power. It's still there, but it's just coming at you from a different direction. And because of that, you're always on the edge of your seat because you never really know where you're gonna go with this song, where you're gonna go with its approach, where you're gonna go with the vocals, with everything that's coming at you. So I really like the explosive nature of this track. It's really what makes this song memorable towards the listener. This is it, Carnifex, Graveside Confessions, out September 3rd on Nuclear Blast. Let me know your thoughts on the band, on the singles. Use the comment section below. I'll be reading those and getting back to you. Take care, guys.